Oh, and Cara, can you enable oh, can you make me co-host so that I can share the screen?
Done.
There we go. Thank you. So there are 4 little paragraphs here from Paths to Recovery on concept 4. Assigning the authority to one group and the responsibility to another group could seriously handicap harmony and efficiency. Al-Anons concepts provide specifically for participation among all levels of the service structure. All of the various groups involved in World Service, trustees, executive committee, World Service office staff and the delegates from each area have voice and vote at the annual World Service Conference, which is the broadest group conscience in Al-Anon. This way, those who make our policies and those charged with carrying them out on a day-to-day basis meet and make decisions together. The current activities of the WSO staff and volunteers are a very small part of the World Service Conference agenda. Most of the job of the conference is to plan policy and action for the future and create guidelines from the service for the service work still to be accomplished. Our service workers have intimate familiarity, experience, and knowledge of many matters precisely because they deal with these issues on a daily basis. They can help us to troubleshoot plans or give valuable practical insights into ideas being discussed. Thus, their voice and vote are an important contribution to conference decisions. In the same way, an employee of an Al-Anon Information Service office might serve on the AIS steering committee or board. Third reading. There are 2 sides to participation, giving of ourselves and including others. We give of ourselves, our opinions and our time, and we become participants. Those in leadership positions include others by consulting members for discussion before taking action. Full participation leads to harmony because there is less opposition and alienation when all of us have a chance to contribute our voice and our vote. And the last one, over the years, I've participated in Al-Anon in many ways. I don't think one role is more important than any other. The member who makes sure the meeting room is unlocked and set up is just as important as the area delegate. And I'll post those in the chat right now. First reading. Second. Third. And fourth. So I don't want to give a sort of academic lecture on this, but concepts can lend themselves to that. That's not what I want to do. A couple of things which can go wrong in recovery and where the concepts apply to that. To understand how concept 4 works, imagine in your home group, you've got the secretary, the chair, the treasurer, GSR, who are actually doing the heavy lifting of the complex running of the group. Imagine in your group conscience meetings, you locked them out of the room and said, we're going to decide without them being there, then we'll bring them in and tell them what to do. It wouldn't work. They're the ones that know, that can contribute valuable information, but also you're not in charge of them. They're part of the body. They're part of the group. And it's exactly the same at conference, that the various trustees and other people who are downstream in terms of delegation, and they're not your servants. And sometimes people treat the General Service Office in that way. They say, well, they're there to do our work, sort of, but they're part of the decision-making process. They're not locked out of the decision-making process. So it's not just, it's not like a chain of command in the army where each level gives orders to the level below, and the level below just have to suck it up. And it's a similar thing with sponsorship, that you're not really giving orders to people. that people have to want to be part of the deal. So it's a voluntary thing, and there's a delicate balance there. The tail doesn't wag the dog, but the dog incorporates the tail into the decision, as it were. The other thing that people do with authority structures, so what one false form of authority is to try to lord it over someone, and you can see where this comes from the Al-Anon, the family with Al-Anons and alcoholics, and certainly in mine it was the untreated Al-Anon who was in charge, who lorded it over everyone else. But the other way I've seen it go wrong is, have you ever seen a thing where something goes wrong in the group, someone feels very, very aggrieved, so they want to report the group to intergroup, to let intergroup come in and give the group what for? They can sort it out. I'm going to appeal to the higher authority of intergroup. It's not a higher authority at all. It's a serving body. It can't resolve the group's problems. It's further down the chain. It's not upstream, it's downstream. And concept 4 is the, for me, the antidote to both of those. It means everyone's got to be at the table. The decision makers and also the people who are implementing the decisions, they're all part of the same discussion. What else? The other thing I wanted to talk about was the last of the four readings, where it says, I don't think one role is more important than any other. The member who makes sure the meeting room is unlocked and set up is just as important as the area delegate. And I can understand why it happens, but often you'll hear a narrative like this. So I came into AA or Al-Anon or whatever the fellowship is, and I was doing this menial job. And with the help of recovery, I've gone to college and I've got a degree and I got a PhD. You always know who's got a PhD because they'll tell you. And then they tell you the marvelous jobs that they've got and how successful they are. It's very good. Or I got a promotion at work and I got praise from my boss and I got a pay rise and all of that. But it was all very humble. But I have, I've got Al-Anon to thank for that, or I've got God to thank for that. So it's all very grateful. But you hear about it, don't you? Again and again. Just in case you missed it the first time, it comes round again. And I've been guilty of this myself. And the reason I love that reading is it says, as long as you're participating, you're just as far ahead as someone who, in a worldly sense, the world might say, well, that person is doing better. Look how elevated their position is. Look how much money they're getting. In God's eyes, according to that reading, no one is further ahead than anyone else. If you're participating, you're participating. If you're not, you're not. And my first job in recovery was buttering pieces of bread. And looking back, I don't think I'm any further ahead than that, in a sense. If on a working day I work and I work diligently, it's just as good. It doesn't matter what it is, it matters how I'm doing it. And I've read I can't mention them because they're not conference approved, but there are various other authors who say exactly the same thing. It's why you're doing it, it's the motivation, it's wanting to participate in the swirl of life, it's wanting to play your part, whatever that part is. It's not about success or achievement or attainment or impressing people. And a good day, and this is an image which I use a lot, and I find it very helpful because I was brought up in an environment where success, material success and academic achievement and attainment was very highly praised. And in my family, when someone gets a job, even a perfectly what the world thinks of as a perfectly good job. Someone else in the family would say, it's such a shame. He could have become a doctor, but look what look what's happened. The person saying it isn't a doctor, you know, necessarily. The antidote to that is to say each day I'm given a voucher of 24 hours or 16 waking hours. I'm asleep for 8 of those. Every day I'm given a voucher of 16 waking hours, and my job is to redeem those vouchers against the most valuable activities I can find. And rest is valuable, and looking after oneself is valuable, and enjoying oneself is valuable, and discharging one's duties is valuable. But the value, the face value of an hour redeemed by cleaning the house, to me, is it has the same face value as an hour spent on a highfalutin job. I don't think one is more valuable than the other. Speaking in front of a lot of people or speaking to one person, the face value on the little stamp for the hour, the voucher for the hour, it's the same. And this gives me a lot of, it takes all the pressure off. All I have to do is do the next right thing and not concern myself mentally with anything outside that. And part of participation is to, number one, to do the job. Number two, not to do everyone else's job. And that's key. And if you're doing your job and you're really concentrating on that, you haven't got time to worry about everyone else's job because you're doing your job. A chap called Bob used to say, there are people that do and there are people that judge. Yeah, pick group you want to belong to, but pick the doer group. And if you keep yourself really busy doing, you can't be bothered with the judging. So do your own job and do only your own job. That's it. And there is a custodial function with a group. So if you belong to a group and you do a little job, when you get to the business meeting, there's a custodial function where you and everyone else can chip in on what might be done better across the group as a whole, which might cover other people's work. But it's not this sort of constant monitoring and surveilling and harping on, and just quietly get on with it. Note everything, maybe, for future reference, but just to quietly get on with one's own little corner. And I find it very helpful with, sometimes it's been on my step fours in the past, and I know it's been on other people's too, getting very worried about lots of things happening in the world. And I don't think it does to completely ignore it, unless one has to for one's own mental health. That's perfectly valid. But to say, well, what is my part? My part might be to belong to a political party. It might be to be engaged in activism. It might be to give money to a charity. It might be simply to vote in elections and let it go at that. But to find the level of participation that, according to God, I think is what my job is, and to do that, but get in there, do the job and get out, not to constantly be worrying about the world and watching rolling news stations and social media and other media feeds and being the critic on the sidelines. Concept 4 is the antidote to that as well. So I think it's an incredibly useful concept. So Cara, would you be able to turn the recording off?